In accordance with the Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, 20F, any member of the public is welcome to record this meeting as long as they make themselves known to us. Is there anybody here who would like to record the meeting? Seeing none, the meeting is called to order. Is there any public comment? So we will move directly into our discussion for today, which is a review of our 26 operating budget committee report.
I think I guess I'll take this one, Lillian.
Okay,
I
thank you very
sent this
much.
out to committee members, just so you're familiar with how the committee organized their report on the FY26 operating budget, which included an introduction on the methodology that the committee followed, a discussion about revenue, and then they broke it into the general fund and the enterprise funds, and then focusing within the general fund on the school department, public works, and police, which are the big three. And then dedicated a section on the enterprise funds, other requirements, which is a big category for us. And then finalizing the report with some thoughts about looking ahead. And so I just wanted to throw it out there to the group if you want to ask you if you want to follow the same format that has been followed previously, or if you're thinking about perhaps modifying the format, the structure of your report. I guess this would be an appropriate time to discuss how that, what your thoughts are around your approach for the FY27 report. So with that introduction, I'll turn it over to committee members to hear what your thoughts are. And then we'll talk more about, who you might want to bring in for an interview and so forth.
May I ask a question, Mark? Is that the document you're referring to is the 40-page document?
That's correct. Yes.
Thank you.
It's actually only 38.
Okay.
Rounded up, it's 40. Yeah.
Maybe we don't need to go through the methodology and the overview.
Where does the report go?
I'm sorry?
Where does the report go? Just to town council?
It goes to town council, and then it's also posted on the town website.
We provide all department heads, town manager's office, of course, and all the department heads a copy of your report as well.
I guess my question would be, is a 40-page report of value to town councilors, maybe to Chris Clark, to say, we used to summarize $1 billion corporation in 6 pages. So to me, it's so long, I don't know how many people would ever read it. That's my opening comment, that there may be a way to summarize it with yearly trends showing revenue and costs, and maybe less than a dozen pages.
And if I could respond to that, I think Frank brings up a good point, and that's what the CIP subcommittee attempted to do. They really scaled their report back to a minimum number of pages this year, as opposed to providing multiple pages of information that was kind of already included in the overall budget itself. So yeah, if the committee wanted to consider downsizing considerably the size of a report along the lines of what Frank is suggesting, it could be a good way to go.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, the report is I'd say a result of multiple years of an agenda or an agenda that was put together many years ago and then has grown over the years. More and more has been added, and more in-depth analysis has been added, and I think to a fault where it got to be 40 pages or 38 pages, and it might. I would be very open to look at how do we take this report and really scale it back.
It's a great
bring
report.
bring
It's
it
all inclusive. The
right.
report is all, it's way, I mean, it's a great report, but it could almost be the entire budget report, you know, versus the summary of it. It's like
Chris,
the page with the projected head counts and enrollments with all those bars hovering around 5,000. The reality is the school population's dropping like a rock, but that graph doesn't show that. You know,
If
it's
I
dropping
may,
from,
yeah, go ahead, Chris.
thank you.
I think this report is as much bigger than it normally is because the report on the school department was much more comprehensive and detailed than it had ever been. So,
If
And
I may, I hate to have you um, discard all the hard work you've done. And one of our newest counselors is a former member of your committee, that being Tom Keene. Um, can you distill that information to a like executive summary for those that want to scan, and yet you don't have for those that want to do a deeper dive or have the time to do so? Like I
maybe,
said, you guys did the work.
yeah, maybe Chris,
well, we
and I
haven't done
think,
it yet for this year though, right? So this is last year's report. So we haven't begun the work for
Oh, I
27.
see.
yeah, and what I wanted to put forward is that, it was Tom's first time looking at the school, and, he did a deep dive. It was my first time looking at the enterprise, and I know, Lillian, you've let me know that I've did a deep dive too. And I did the deep dive not from a point of trying to overdo it. It was more of a point of me learning about what the enterprise was. And I'm sure that Tom really did a deep dive so that he learned about the school. And there is a lot of data that can be summarized down, Frank. And I think it's wise to look at, um, when you do a summary, when you do a summarization of it, and you have to really choose your words wisely. Um, you tend to focus on the essence of each of these sections rather than um, uh, applying as much data as you possibly can to give the readers the information. So it might be worth our while to focus on the essence that we want to try to convey.
It's like the enterprise is a perfect example. It's 9 departments that total $50 million.
That's correct.
And I think what the average person wants to see is what are they spending and how many people do they have, and then maybe a blurb on what they do.
And what is costing the taxpayers?
Exactly.
exactly.
Yeah, it's
And then
the airport is a wonderful example of they spent 12.8 and then 13.5. So how many people do they have? Rumor has it they support 2,000 jobs in the area. No one really can name the 2,000 people, but a lot of people wonder. It really doesn't cost Barnstable much because it's, I think, 90% federal, 5% state, and 5% Barnstable. So that's the type of message that I think needs to come across. Or
Yeah.
Golf shouldn't be costing the taxpayer anything because it's only 300 people that use it.
And are there ways to apply PSP to any one of the enterprises to be able to alleviate some of the costs?
Exactly.
Well, before we get into that, I think there are actually five major components on this operating budget. There's the general fund, which we have to have. We have schools and municipal operations. You have fixed costs, and you have the enterprise funds. Now, under municipal operations, we have divided out and had DPW and police, but we can consolidate all that. Fixed cost is very important. School is very important because of 60% of the operating budget, and of course, municipal operations is the 40%. And if we can condense the enterprise, um, and look at new ways possibly. But those five components, we can streamline that a little bit. What do you think?
I agree. Fixed cost is one that I really, I hate the word fixed cost because none of them are fixed. And I think we can tell the public more about what those really are and maybe spread them by department. I think the fixed cost is probably healthcare, right?
Yeah, the better terminology for it is other requirements, and it includes multiple categories: debt service, loans we have to pay back, employee benefits, state and county assessments,
And,
and some miscellaneous other items. But they all total collectively like $70 million. It's a big area of our budget.
but the bulk of it is health. It's benefits that, in my mind, belong with the department. So when someone says, "I want to hire," or "I want to add a teacher or a worker at the dump," it's not the $60,000 salary. It's the benefits on top of that, and then the 30-year pension at the end when they retire at 52. So those costs, the taxpayer doesn't see them.
I think last year when Tom Keene did the school report, he mentioned that the benefits were not included in the school budget.
So when the school says we spend $20,000 per student, it's closer to 30. And I think the taxpayers are very interested in that to say, what can we do, it's like yesterday's school department. Enrollment's going to drop 170 students from 4,500 to 4,300, and we're going to add people. I mean, if you lose 175 students, you should be losing 10 teachers. So how come we don't have 10 teachers leaving, and then you can have 3 more counselors come in? It's just the taxpayer is going to wonder that. And they talk about average class sizes yesterday, but they don't use a number. There was no head count, $73 million budget, and we didn't talk about head count. I mean, those are the things that, it's like how many of the 40, I don't know how many people in the school department, but the people that I've talked to would like to say, how many are teachers and how many are administrators? And if there are more administrators than there are teachers, we have a problem. And I think the number might be 50-50, but nobody ever sees that number. I mean,
I think you put your finger on it.
Yeah. So
the school budget is so complex that we need to actually explain it so that the average person, as well as the town council, can understand it. That the fact that they're going to add full-time pre-K 4-year-olds with a declining enrollment and having to dig into their savings again, which will be depleted in 5 years. We need to look at that. Is it really worth 60% of the budget? It's not our call because town council decides that. But I think if we look at the details of this, we may raise some questions for the town council to ponder.
I agree with you, Lillian. I totally agree.
But I think you put your finger on it.
There aren't 3 businesses in America that has a 20% decline in people you're serving and says that we need more people. It's just, It's an oddity. And it might be due to that there's so many special needs students or so many non-English speaking students. There might be a reason for it, but we have to explain it to people.
Yeah, and I reviewed some of that meeting last night and some of the comments by Superintendent and her, and she went into, talking about the programs and services and how, there are specialized needs that have grown, which require additional staffing to address those special needs and English language learners and so forth. So there isn't a direct correlation between the drop of students and the number of teachers, because the drop in enrollment is spread across amongst the district. It's not in a certain grade level where you can, eliminate a classroom teacher because you had specifically 15 kid reduction at the 3rd grade level at the Centerville Elementary School. It doesn't correlate that easily into reductions. But these are all good points, and I think what I would suggest that everybody do is maybe you separate out the sections of the report that you want each individual to concentrate on, and draft up those list of questions that you have for us, and we can get back to you with the answers on them.
What do the decision packages look like that we get? Do we see by department with some trends in the building blocks of their expenses, personnel, supplies, whatever else they have? Or do we just get one number?
Gareth, I think provided you those decision packages. Yeah. Those are additional funding requests on top of what the base budget that the departments already have. And so, yeah, that's,
I guess I'm still confused with those things.
Increases that they're looking for.
2 meetings ago, we only saw increases. It was like the police training was going up by $605,000, but you didn't know what it was last year. It was just the difference between 2 years, which to me it doesn't tell enough of a story to be meaningful to say two numbers. This is a net incremental change, but is it on $1 million or $1 billion? I mean, there's no reference. So those packages to me were not overly useful because you can't see the years before and you can't see the components. So take any department that we're going to look at, like police. Police is all people in vehicles in my mind. But does their budget reflect that it's salaries, benefits, training, vehicle expense, or what are the components in our general ledger, if you will?
Yeah. So their budget is broken down at the general ledger level between personnel costs, operating expenses, and then operating capital. Operating capital being their vehicles and other equipment. So yeah, there's a level of detail there, to dozens of expenditure accounts. And between those three categories, we have to separate their costs by statute. Within those three categories, and then within those three categories, there are multiple line items of expenditures.
So it's personnel, operating, and then what's the third one again?
It's called capital, operating capital. Yeah,
operating capital, which is a financially is an oxymoron, right? You're either capital or operating. So how do they educate?
Well, it's an operating capital is a term used in a municipal environment for
expenses related to capital items.
The procurement of assets like vehicles, firearms, tasers, components.
But they're not expensed though, right? The cars aren't expensed, aren't they? Depreciated over a useful life.
Well, they're expensed. We buy them. We're on a budget, cash basis of accounting when it comes to the budget. And so if we got to go out and buy a $75,000 marked cruiser, we budget $75,000 for a marked cruiser, and that's what we expend against the budget. It's not.
And we don't have an asset to reflect the vehicles on our balance sheet.
We do have an asset that's reflected in our GAAP basis financial statements, but depreciation is not an operating expense when it comes to cash accounting. We're on a completely separate basis of accounting than private entities when it comes to budgetary control. Everything is on a cash basis.
I get it. Okay.
Control.
Thank you.
Yep.
Getting back to the question that Mark posed to all of us, we should probably decide who among us is going to do which portion of this report.
Well, I mean, I can take the same sections that I did last year and put a focus on reducing the number of pages and making it more streamlined. And as Frank was saying,
you did such a great job on the enterprise fund. Maybe you could just sort of tighten it up a little bit.
Tighten it up quite a bit. And I think.
Do you want to do fixed costs? Or otherwise, I'll do fixed costs.
Yeah, I can do fixed costs also. Before I go off and just say I'll do fixed costs, I I think that we want to, there's been some discussion about fixed costs and how do you apply the fixed costs across um, the the uh, the employee base and try to uh, not generalize, but identify what are the real true fixed costs and how do they apply to um, uh, the operating budget from a employee basis as well as from a debt basis. So I can take that, the fixed costs, and then try to put some meaning behind where do those fixed costs go, and try to percentage, get some focus towards that. How much goes to the schools and how much goes to the different departments. But I want to keep it simple. And that's what we've tried to do in the past with the fixed costs is try to keep it simple based off of the past ways that it was presented.
Provide us with some information about this.
What I was going to,
The departments used to have their own fixed costs, the employee benefits, and at some point it was all combined.
right.
Yes, and I'm glad you brought that up, Lily, because it was combined at a recommendation from a previous CFAC committee. Okay, which is fine. I mean, it's a cost accounting thing. I mean, we take that category of other requirements, and we allocate all that cost out to the operating departments, and that exercise is illustrated in the operating budget summary report. And I think we've shared this with the committee before, and I can share it with you again. It's available. We do this exercise every single year to spread that cost or allocate that cost back to the individual departments.
Right.
But again, several years ago, previous committee, I don't think any of you were on it. The recommendation was to consolidate all of that, put it under another requirements category and budget for it separately, because nobody had any idea collectively what these costs totaled. You'd have to go to each individual department and pull it out, and it wasn't as transparent that they felt it wasn't as transparent as it should be. And so we followed that recommendation, we implemented that, and it's been that way for several years now. But certainly we can do it either way. Either way works, but managing those types of budgets from a centralized perspective increases provides better administration over those costs. Otherwise, you've got the department heads managing their own individual employee health insurance costs from a budgetary standpoint. Makes no sense when, collectively you manage that from, basically the central administration, finance and HR. We oversee really the health insurance budget. We don't want departments, having the responsibility of having to manage all of that when they have no control over it from a day-to-day operation perspective.
So just so I understand what we're talking about for fixed costs, last year it was on page 30 and it's $78 million.
Yep.
Right.
Of which 35 million is employee benefits, 15 million is school assessments. Why wouldn't that be part of the schools, I guess is what I would say. And we give the libraries $2.3 million as a fixed expense. Why wouldn't that go to libraries?
Yes.
It does go to libraries. I mean, we budgeted under this. We budgeted under this category, but those are grants. Those are all grants that we issue to the 7 village libraries. We are not required to provide them anything because they're all independent 501c3s. But the town of Barnstable has historically supported the 7 village libraries with grants.
So in our overall operating budget, we don't have any library information in other than this 2.3 that we send out.
That's right. Yep. Yeah, we don't manage the libraries.
But the school assessments,
I'm probably the only CFAC member left who voted for the combination to combine all of this and put it under fixed costs. Now, don't forget that we have the general fund, and then we subtract the fixed costs before we have the amount of money left for schools and municipal operations. And that's basically the underlying reason why we did that.
But aren't we under reporting what the schools really cost? If there's 60% of the budget, they're probably 60% of the employee benefits. So you get
It's
$20 million that doesn't show up in the school spending.
well, it's over when you include all of the benefits, it's more than 70%. You're
Well, that's
correct.
why.
You're
So
correct.
if 100 people went away in our budget, this fixed cost should come down. So therefore, it's not fixed, right? That's my point. That if an employee right now to add an employee, the benefits are free to the department manager because they're Mark's problem in fixed costs, and therefore the responsibility of the manager. Every time they hire a person, they should be thinking the salary is 60, the benefits are 25, and the pension is another 25. So that employee is really 100,000+, not 60. I think that 90% the driving force of all spending in the town is people.
Yeah, so you're looking at, changing the way that the school individuals look at the employees. And one of the ways to change that is to report it to the town council as well as publicly what the total cost of the school would be.
Yes, and I'm not suggesting decentralizing the management of it. You can certainly, in every company and in every municipality, it should be centrally managed, but it should be reflected in the cost of the department spending.
Yeah, so
the police don't.
you can still have the fixed cost
We
report.
do that. We do that with the operating budget report that we submit. It's included in that. I'll share that with you again. You can see what the allocation looks like. When you add the school assessments, you add the benefits associated with the school department, you add the debt service associated with school capital improvements. We spend well over $100 million on education. Okay. And
I agree.
that is provided. We're not going to budget that way, but we can certainly do the cost allocation out so you can see what that looks like. And by the way, that's the way we have to report our spending when the school department has to file their end of year school report to the state of Massachusetts. Not only do they include their direct operating expenses, but they have to include all of the indirect operating expenses like employee benefits, school assessments. So that is done. That exercise is done. If the CFAC would like to provide that allocation as an illustration in your report, we can certainly work with you on putting that together. And maybe that's what we should do to better illustrate, to Frank's point, what the total cost of education is to the town of Barnstable.
Yeah. My concern was when Gareth told me about that report last year, he pulled out that 3-inch thick, and on page 288 is where you could find that. It wasn't obvious or easy to find. It was definitely there.
There's a summary report on the website. I think it's not a 200-page document. It's well less than 100 pages, but I can show that to you again. I'll send it out to the committee after this meeting and tell you what page to find it on. I think it's like on pages 44 to 48 or something.
Yeah, and what I'm hearing, Frank, is, and I agree with you, is sensitizing the individuals that run the different departments within the town of Barnstable to look at not only the cost of the employee from a salary basis, but the cost of the employee from what we'll call a fixed cost basis, which is the total cost of that employee, which is what any of us have done in the non-municipal industry. We've always looked at the total cost.
On the school department, when it comes to these costs, for teachers' retirement, the town of Barnstable pays nothing. The entire responsibility for a teacher's pension is on the state of Massachusetts. And when it comes to health insurance, you never know what you're going to get when it comes to health insurance, because the employee coming on may not take our health insurance. They could have health insurance through a spouse. Or they could have a single plan or a family plan. We don't know because we can't ask them in an interview, are you married and do you have kids?
That's true. Yeah.
But how do we reflect the cost of their pensions from the state? Does it show up anywhere in the financial statements?
It does. It shows up in our GAAP financial statements, the annual audit report. We have to take our cash basis financial statements and do dozens of journal entries to reflect from a full, generally accepted accounting principles basis, a full accrual basis, all of the costs associated with an operation that's not reflected on our general ledger. So the pension payments that the state of Massachusetts makes on behalf of the town of Barnstable, we have to get from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We show that as a resource on one side of the general ledger, and we show that as an expenditure on the other side of the general ledger, because the Commonwealth pays for it all. So it's very different. When you look at our full accrual basis financial statement, which is our audit report, it's going to look very different than our budget. Because
I agree, but in the missing piece that people don't typically see in municipal is the asset base that Barnstable has got to be huge.
Hundreds of millions of dollars, and that's in our full GAAP basis financial
how many,
statement.
please? Right.
Hundreds of millions of
exactly. So that when someone compares some debt levels to having hundreds of millions of assets, the debt levels aren't bad.
Yeah.
No, and that includes land and buildings and cars and
Right.
beaches and houses and and a lot of those assets have increased in value over the last 5 years tremendously.
Yeah, well, but those assets are reported in our financial statements at historical cost basis, not market value. That's the way we have to account for fixed assets in our financial statements. We can't, like, the land that the town of Barnstable has in its inventory is all at historical cost basis. If you were to convert that to market value,
it's measured in billions.
$1 million more.
It would be immeasurable, yeah.
But that's not the way it's done from generally accepted accounting principle.
So
we're getting into weeds here, which
I took us down a wrong path. I'm sorry about that. Lillian, let's go. You had an idea in mind as to how we want to break this up and start to make it happen. So I'm sorry about sidetracking us.
Okay. Let's go back to those 5 general categories. You've got the general fund, you've got schools and municipal operations, you have fixed costs, and you have enterprise funds. I'm going to suggest, Chris, that you take municipal operations and enterprise.
Okay.
And I'll be happy to do the front end, the general fund, and the fixed costs. Frank, are you feeling brave to take on schools?
Sure, I'll take on schools.
Yeah.
They may not like me when I'm done, but I think there are different ways that we can present the numbers. I'm pro schools without a doubt, but I think people need to understand how much we're really spending on schools.
I think we're all pro schools. I mean, we wouldn't have Barnstable unless we had a good school.
Totally agree. Not every taxpayer above the age of a certain age is pro schools, though. We have to win those people back over.
Right. Agree.
Right. I think the key question, Frank, is although everybody is pro school, is the school budget producing commensurate with the value that it's producing for its students? With a decreasing enrollment, increasing costs,
There's so many students. You've got 800 students choosing not to stay in Barnstable schools. That is alarming to me, that they'd rather drive to Nauset every day. I find that amazing. So or maybe we've become, if we have 48% of our students don't speak English, then the components of Barnstable have changed. Or if it's 48%, it's the English speaking students are going elsewhere. I don't get it. I mean, I just don't understand it, and I'd like to understand it. How do we make Barnstable schools great again, if you will?
And I mean, the VOTEC schools, I think, are great. And I think, I don't know how many of our students go to the VOTEC schools, but on the Cape, if you don't have the VOTEC schools, you're not going to have a lot of the HVAC and plumbers and
Exactly.
that we all wait to come to our homes to be able to do the work that we need done.
My concern of the school systems, though, is very simple in that when I was coaching middle school kids and high school kids for basketball, and I said, did anyone ever mention to you in school that you could study accounting? They didn't even know what accounting was. It had
Yeah.
never been mentioned to them. But they knew how to do science, technology, IT, teaching, nursing. But the word business didn't make it to them. So it's a little, that concerns me, but we're not going to change that with a budget. So I volunteer for schools.
Yay. Okay, so we're all set. And Chris,
Okay.
if you want to delve into some of the enterprise funds and see what the possibilities are for the public-private partnerships, that would be really great.
Yeah,
I know
I already have
Remus is really eager to look into that as well.
I already have a couple of ideas. And Mark, I read the paper that or the Massachusetts guidelines that you sent, and I didn't see anywhere within the guidelines that you couldn't use private sector um, participation with enterprise funds or enterprise
No,
portions of the business.
that's right. And for an example of that is, we contract out the management of the daily operations for our drinking water system.
Right.
So,
I mean, I'm thinking of why not ask Cape Cod 5 to put their name on the ice rinks for a
yeah,
certain amount of
unfortunately,
money.
right now, the Butler and the Kennedy rinks are named Butler and Kennedy, and from my understanding, that's in perpetuity. But there are dasher boards, around that go around both sheets of ice, and we do sell advertising on those dasher boards, and I think Cape Cod 5 has participated in that. So
And I was thinking that our famous peg, um, um, can we sell advertisements in peg?
Ah,
It's a good point. But the
mm,
one that will get attention from a lot of people is golf.
yeah.
There's a lot that could happen. That could be the Cape Cod 5 golf course instead of Old Barney.
That's right. That's right. Cape Cod 5, or if there's a brand name, a Titleist that wants to have a bigger um, presence, then they could do that.
yeah. Many years ago, when the high school was building a new stadium, CFAC suggested that they sell sponsorships with their names attached,
Hmm.
and it got nowhere. So I'm glad we're bringing it up again.
Yeah. Every section of those stands at the football stadium could have a
Exactly.
name in the back. You were
Yeah,
sitting in the Cape Cod 5 or the co-op section, or yeah.
exactly. It's easier.
Donate,
It's easier
donate,
to find your friends too.
donated by Frank Ward.
Well, if it was the
Yeah,
Frank Ward from
Frank.
Osterville, may he rest in peace, he had enough money, but I don't.
Yeah.
Okay.
You could have the Marlboro and Budweiser section too. So we
Well,
have to be careful of when it comes to naming rights about,
I'll,
discrimination. So
I'll
I
be
know
the
that's been an
pretzel.
issue in the past.
I'll be the pretzel guy. So no, it's good to know. I mean, just some thoughts, Mark, and it's and haven't even gotten to the airport part, which is where Remus had really brought up some thoughts. Um, do you know if we're going to be able to get the airport crew to come and talk to us?
Well, that was what I wanted to ask this committee. Who would you like to invite in? Because I plan on scheduling these meetings on a weekly basis at this time and day every week from here on out until your report is done. So perhaps next week if you'd like to invite the airport in, I can check with Mr. Nelson and see if he's available. Or if you want to have the police department or DPW in, think about who you'd like to invite in, and I will extend those invitations.
It would be great though if we saw something before they're in. Like last night's school committee, we had a February 4th package. They had a different set of slides. It made it difficult to even ask questions. So if we could see their document even the day before, you know, and again, in some type of a format with multiple year trends.
And then Mark, I'm flexible. I think we're all flexible, is that, I already have the weekly meetings scheduled into my calendar, so I'm in on that. If I would leave it up to which department can come in at what time. I wouldn't want to force one department to come in when, if the police are ready to come in, if she's ready to come in and talk to us next week, let's do that. If DPW is ready, we could do that also. I know there was a request from the entire CFAC team that they would want to see some of these presentations. So
Yeah,
if we have it,
that goes to my next question: is do you want to, should those meetings with the departments be at the full committee level or the subcommittee level?
I would make them at this. Here's my opinion. If we're the subcommittee, we're asking for the meetings. We could have the meetings set up for the subcommittee, but invite anyone on the full committee to join our subcommittee at that meeting. That's my opinion. I'm open to other thoughts.
I think it would be very beneficial to have it for the full committee because it provides the other members who are not members of our subcommittee a better perspective of what the DPW is doing, what his police is doing. And quite frankly, we haven't talked to the airport in years. So I think it would be very beneficial for everyone.
Yeah, the only drawback to that is that this full committee only meets once every other week, where you guys are going to be meeting every week.
And we're under the pressure to get it out by May, right?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we really have 5 weeks to put this together.
We have 5 weeks, but we don't have all the decision packages yet. So it's, we're waiting for some other information.
And it will change up until the last minute, right, Mark?
Yeah. It always does. It always does. I think Gareth shared that. Did he send you the decision packages?
He did.
The internal working documents that we use.
He did. Okay. Yes, we have those.
Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't pay too much attention to those because those are all just a bunch of asks that the departments submitted on an annual basis for incremental increases to their operating budget. We typically do not have the capacity to finance many of those, if any at all. And so really, I think more focus probably needs to be done on the trends, what the historical budgets have been in the area. What conversations with the department heads as to what their the major stress that they face from a programming perspective, where there insufficient resources to really provide the level of service that they'd like to provide.
Okay.
And I think we can provide you before we meet with the next department. We can provide you like a 5-year trend as to what the budget's been for that particular department. If that's because the school department's kind of unique, okay, because they have autonomy in developing their budget. The school committee with the superintendent develop the school department's budget, and they submit that to the town manager, which he must include in his annual operating budget. He has no control in deciding how the school department's budget is going to be developed. That under Mass General Law, the school committee has a great deal of autonomy in doing so. The council has the authority to appropriate, and that's it. The council does not have the authority to modify or direct the school committee as to how they can allocate resources. They have the authority to appropriate, and that's it.
But the school could request 98 million and the town council could appropriate 90.
Yes, they could.
And then the school committee has a problem that they have to solve.
And that's the school committee's problem to solve, not the town council's.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we do get the details of the school committee budget, though. That's available to us, isn't it? Or
yeah, you will. Yes.
Right,
when they finalize their budget, you'll be provided the detail of that budget. And they plan, I believe, on voting on their budget, adopting their recommended budget at their next meeting on April 1st, I believe it is.
So that document must exist with details at this point. If I want to start my school analysis,
yeah, I would think it's pretty close to being done. Yep, and Chris Dwelly will provide that to us.
Chris Dwelly is the person. Thank you.
Yep. He'll be the person to reach out. You'll be working with on any school-related questions. He's the best.
He was on last night, so excellent. Thank
you. Mark, can I ask a question about the airport? Did we go through a change in the management at the airport?
Yes.
Yes, both our manager and assistant manager recently took all their positions elsewhere. And so we have a brand new airport manager, Mike Nelson. So, yeah.
And do you know where they went and why they left?
I do not. No, I don't have those details.
Okay.
I think Katie Service might have gone to a previous employer. But I can't confirm that, but I think she might have come back to.
I could understand that she'd be in demand. I think she was really good.
Yeah, it's a shame because they were both very good, and she was very good.
And that's what happens to good people. They often,
of course,
grabbed away from you. But
yeah, that's why I asked. I knew there was a change. I just didn't know when and why. But
it was certainly their decision. I know that. So
okay.
Do we do any personnel planning, HR planning, where each manager has to say who their replacement might be from within if they needed such?
Oh yes, absolutely. I mean, it's any time a position becomes vacant, it goes through an internal process in accordance. If it's a union position, there's a certain set of procedures we have to go through, and as far as advertising, because it has to be offered to first of all to that particular union, and then if nobody applies, and then it goes to all other unions, and if nobody applies again, then it can go to the outside world. But they're non-affiliated positions. It's a little bit different. It goes to the outside immediately, but it's under the town manager has to approve the requisitioning or the backfilling of that position before it even gets advertised.
Mark,
no department head has the authority to backfill a position autonomously. They have to go to the town manager or the superintendent in the event of a school position.
I was thinking more of a depth chart where you look at the departments across the way, and who are the likely candidates if the police chief left? Who's the likely candidate if the director of DPW left? Do we have a second in command, if you will, that could be who would be your acting person if someone left, kind of thing?
Yeah, and I think you'll find that would be predominantly the assistant director within that department, right? Like
Agreed.
If I were to leave, Gareth acts as my the head of the finance operation in my absence. And Rob Steen, the assistant director for public works, acts on Dan's behalf in Dan's absence. So natural, then if one of us were to leave, it wouldn't necessarily go to that individual, but you would
likely be the acting until the search was complete.
It would be the acting until the search is done. They may not be even interested in the department head position. You don't know, so necessarily so. But a full recruiting process would take place, and that would include internal and external candidates under certain circumstances.
Mark, I've got a question on the projected general fund. I know there was a fee hearing last week.
Yes.
And basically what the town manager indicated that most of the fees went up by 5%. And so under the projected budget that you gave us earlier, should we just change all that and add 5% to it?
No, that fee hearing last week was
Oh,
specifically for the water, sewer, and solid waste enterprise funds.
oh, I see.
Those are all fiscal year based fees. They go into effect July 1st. And that hearing was conducted for those three specific enterprise funds.
I see.
Yeah.
So all the other fees are really quite small.
Yes. Yep. And we conduct
We're
any changes
generating
to
about
those.
1.2 million dollars for the whole fee schedule otherwise.
Mhm. Yeah, the other fees, like predominantly the general fund fees, we adjust those usually. Most of those are calendar year based, and we had a hearing on those back in November, where a few of them were adjusted, and we've taken those fee increases into account already in that general fund operating projection.
Okay. So there's essentially not going to be any changes on the fees.
It will. Well, we're monitoring those on a regular basis. We still have 3 months to go here in the fiscal year.
Right.
What happens between now and the end of the fiscal year could change. So we track those on a regular basis, and we may be tweaking some of those. Yep, either
Okay.
up or down, depending upon what actually happens over the next couple of months. But generally speaking, there's not going to be a lot of change there,
Okay.
unless something drastic happens. There's one particular area that um, we will have some change to, and that was, if you recall, at a recent council meeting, we adjusted the rental registration program fee.
Right. I remember that.
That went up significantly. And the reason behind the increase was to try to make that operation 100 more closer to 100% cost recovery, and because it's the fee that we were charging was completely inadequate to cover the costs associated with the annual renewal of rental registration, because we have to send in health inspectors to inspect the property, building inspectors to inspect the property, and those should really be done on an annual basis. We've been only our inspectional services department wasn't getting to all of our rental properties. Our rental properties have more than quadrupled over the past several years. And we didn't keep up with hiring the number of inspectors that were necessary that would allow us to inspect every single one of these on an annual basis. And from a public safety perspective, you really should be doing that, making sure those smoke alarms work, for example.
Right.
And so we had to increase the fee significantly, and this will allow us to bring on additional inspectors. And that's our intention to do so with this next coming operating budget, is to bring on the additional inspectors, and the cost of those inspectors will be covered by that fee increase. So there's no impact to any other operation. It's completely funded with the fee increase that was adopted, approved by the town council a couple of months ago. And that is one area where we do you will see a change in the projected revenue estimate, but it's all going to the inspectional services department to cover that additional staffing.
Yeah, I remember that discussion at town council. So, okay. And the charges for services are going to stay pretty much the same?
Yeah, that one, I think we have a $5 increase in the residential parking permit for beach stickers.
Right. Yep.
And that is going to be reflected. We'll have a revised estimate for that.
Okay.
and that the additional revenue generated by that will help us offset the cost of seasonal wage increases that we plan on implementing so that we can track lifeguards and gate attendants necessary to run our public beach operations. It's particularly when it comes to lifeguards,
Right.
it has been a real challenge regionally because everybody else is paying more, and we needed to up our lifeguard fee wages to attract lifeguards to come stay to come work for us. So it's just gotten a lot more competitive, and the only way we can generate the revenue to do that would be to make a slight modification to that fee. I think we went up $5 on the permit.
Okay.
So those are the two big changes that you'll see, or two changes that you'll see. I wouldn't say they're big, but
Thank you.
yeah.
Mark,
My portions of the report don't need to call in anybody. So, Frank, if you want to have the schools come back into our subcommittee, or Chris, if you want to have the enterprise funds or some department come in on our Tuesday, um, it's your all's choice.
Am
Yeah,
I
I
allowed
think-
to speak with them directly, or do I have to do everything via committee meetings?
Oh, you can certainly reach out to them directly, Frank. Just let me know who you want to speak to, and I'll give them I'll send them an email ahead of time so that they'll expect a phone call from you.
Excellent. Thank you. I just didn't want to violate any open meeting law.
No, that wouldn't be a violation since it's not a
Thank
committee. Yeah.
and I think for the enterprise, it's just the airport that is important to me to get some visibility on. And Mark, I still have a question with the airport is that, they have their own board, or, their own board and that makes the decisions about everything with the airport. All of the other enterprises have to go through town council to get decisions made, or the decisions that they make have to be approved by town council, the way
Yes.
I understand it.
Yeah, no, that's
So,
correct. Yep.
so why does the airport have their own board versus
Yeah.
going through town council?
When our charter was adopted back in 1989, that charter established an airport commission, which has some independent authority. And so it's just related to the charter and the way the
Okay.
town is organized.
Okay. And
Yeah.
then, so yes, the airport, if we can, or when we can. And then I think the other two departments that are important for us is the police and DPW. And if those can be scheduled during a CFAC general meeting, that would be fine. I think the airport as soon as possible, unless we have to do that with a general CFAC meeting.
All right, let me start with inviting Manager Nelson to your next Tuesday afternoon meeting and see if he can
Okay.
attend it. Okay.
Yeah, that's great. And any information that he has about his budget and his strategy, the airport strategy moving forward would be very helpful for me as well as for I think for the committee. The last thing I wanted to ask you, Mark, is we spent a lot of time discussing the sewer, CPMW or CPWM. I can't remember.
CWMP.
CWMP. I put the W in the wrong spot. CWMP. And I realized that, the budget, the operating budget for the next year is solid. And we have the budget's been approved for CWMP moving forward, at least for the next, the capital budget for the next 5 years, and the money, loans, and all of this should be available. Beyond that, it's a big chunk of money that we never really talk about. And do you think that we've hit on that subject, the CWMP, well enough in the capital discussion versus having to really spend a lot more time on it in the operating budget?
I think so. I think the combination of what the CIP subcommittee has done in regards to the CWMP, as well as the recommendation that I made to the town council that the full CFAC review the funding model that we utilize to measure the financial stability of that program, be reviewed by the full committee and reported back to the town council this summer. I think the combination of those two things is enough. We don't need to have this committee taking a deep dive into the CWMP.
Okay.
I think that would be a little bit overkill.
Yeah, I mean, I think what Chris said last year in his presentation to the town council is that we don't have enough money long term, and that's probably a true statement still.
Yeah, we don't, and we don't from standpoint that we can't continue to fund multi-million-dollar sewer expansion projects with the existing resources that we have. Just to rehash what we've talked about in the past. We've appropriated over $300 million in expenses with that program. We've dedicated, revenue streams to pay back the loans that we're going to be taking out to finance the major construction projects. But we're at a point where, we can't authorize anymore beyond the FY27 projects that are being recommended right now because we need more resources. And the recommendation that we made to the town council was to put a debt exclusion out on the ballot for those future year 28 through 31 projects, FY28 through FY31 projects, so that we can create a resource to pay back the loans necessary to implement that program.
Okay. Yeah. My poor humor is that would Cape Cod 5 want to put their name on our pipes and pumps?
You never know until you ask, right?
We'll have to put those lines, those sewer lines above ground so everybody can see the advertise.
Every time you flush, you see their name come up in the water stream.
Thanks, Frank. That was good.
So just one more comment. I know we might be heading towards the end of this. When we did the FY26 overview, that we spent a lot of time on last, and we changed the formats and whatnot, maybe we could consider using a similar format for the report that we generate for this operating budget, where we had things in thousands or in millions, depending upon what it needs to be. There were trends. We didn't put any headcount reports in it, but I think we could have expenditures with trends with headcount in it. I'm just looking at it on the website. On our committee page, the link doesn't work, but you can see it in a PDF form. We did it all in 12 pages, and I'm thinking we could do something similar with this operating budget summary, where the table of contents gives you the big picture, and then it drills down into each one of those things. Like the enterprise funds, we listed 23, 24, 25, 26. There are multiple trends. You can see we could add head counts to them and then some words. I think it might be something to consider relative to how we do this operating budget. Then it makes the summary fairly simple.
Yeah, I think looking at trends is a very important component of this report. So I agree with you.
I'll try to do something similar for the school using that same type of format.
Yeah.
And the same with the enterprise and
Sounds good.
Yep, that's good.
So anybody have any other comments before we dive in and start working?
Let the fun begin.
Let the fun begin.
And how do you want to do interim reports. If let's say I have something on the enterprise that I'd like to share, how would you like to do that because of the open meeting rules?
You can send us your drafts, and then we will discuss it at our meetings. We just don't discuss it with each other without a formal meeting.
Yeah, no
Okay.
email exchanges. You're free to
Yeah.
share your drafts with the rest of the subcommittee members, but subcommittee members should not be responding to that email.
Okay.
Save your responses for the next meeting.
Yeah. Well, that wraps it up. Chris, are you still here? Chris Clark?
I'm mute.
You're mute.
You're still talking to us. Chris, you're muted.
Thank you. I don't know when the right time is to bring this up, but perhaps Director Milne could convey to you, the rest of the committee, that the town council has been presented with a petition for an increase in the benefits for retirees. That would be a reoccurring expense should that pass, but has yet not been discussed. But I just let you know that it has been presented to us.
I remember that discussion during a town council meeting when everybody came up and said the retirees are still paying more than the present employees. So, do you know when the town council might make a decision about that?
No, not at this time.
Okay.
But we did hear it, and it was put aside, and now we're dealing with the budget. But we'll have to address it eventually. So I'm just saying that might be something that CFAC might want to weigh in on. I defer to Director Milne on this.
Help me understand what the question is. The retirees that have been retired for 20 years want the town to pay more for their health care?
Yeah, exactly. They want the town to pay more for their health share, effectively 70%, which is what we pay for active employees. 7%
But
of
they
the
retired
annual.
under something less than that.
Yes. Yeah.
And they
50%.
agreed to retire at that number, and they want to renegotiate. And what's the benefit for the town? There's no possible benefit.
No, from an operational standpoint, no, it's a fairness and equity issue that they brought up. If active employees are receiving 70%. So for example,
Yeah.
if we have an active employee right now who takes our health insurance and they're receiving a 70% contribution from the town of Barnstable, and next week they retire, they drop to 50%. So the ask has come from our retirees to match the 70% contribution for that active employees get. But in order for us to do that, it's a $750,000 annual cost increase.
And there wouldn't
we
be
would
a
have
tax
to
bill.
reallocate budget dollars. We'd have to cut budgets elsewhere and reallocate those funds to employee benefits to provide them the same level of contribution towards their insurance.
If you ask the taxpayers, there wouldn't be 3 of them that said yes unless they were related to those retirees.
Yeah, it may be so, but there were some there. You go back and watch the meeting and listen to
Did the town pay for my health benefits too? I mean, the ask to me is odd, but I guess you never know unless one asks. But if the town council approves that, I think you'll have petitions to remove town council people.
Yeah.
That's just so you know that the councilors found that that the petition had merit. So we have not voted on taking action.
Certainly worth discussing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just saying input from CFAC at the appropriate time would help in our evaluation. And I'll tell you, I'm a former town employee. I did derive my health benefit through my husband's employment, but when I saw the parade of retirees coming to the microphone, they were my colleagues. So I'm just saying that there's that to deal with. But I'm just putting that on your radar that CFAC's input would be helpful in the evaluation.
Do we have not to make it personal, but do we have town council members that would be voting to increase their own health benefits? They'd all have a conflict, right?
They
They would have
do. They would have to step out in that
re-
vote.
they would have to
Interesting.
recuse themselves.
I wasn't aware of this. Thanks for bringing it up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me, letting me sit in. I try to learn as we go forward.
Come back anytime.
Thank you for your hard work. By the way, at yesterday's appointments committee, they did apparently appoint someone for your committee. It'll be a first read.
One person?
One
Two.
person, I believe.
I believe there were two.
Okay,
Yeah.
two. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I heard that there were two.
Okay.
I saw that on the agenda this morning, and Councilor Clark you may suspend the rules, I think.
Oh, if that's what you'd like, sure.
No, I think the issue is with the Board of Assessor appointees, which is under the
Oh.
same agenda item.
That's true.
And yeah, we need to have the Board of Assessors start meeting again to act on abatement applications. And
I'm fully aware of that.
yeah, so it may be taken out of, you may be suspending the rules. I'm not sure. So we could have two CFAC members very soon.
Great.
That's very nice. They can watch us in action, as Frank would say. Is there?
We're having fun.
Yeah. Is there anything else to come before the committee?
Well, I like this time of 4 o'clock, and thank you, Mark, for agreeing to 4 o'clock and on your schedule. I hope it works for everybody else's, but I like this time.
Yeah, this is perfect.
Works for me.
Good.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Seconded.
By acclamation, it's adjourned.